had a good idea of what I thought I was good at, and I wanted to play to those strengths.
This is James, a creator who found a way to combine journalism, YouTube, and football fandom into his dream job.
YouTube, commentary, punditry, podcasting is all journalism. We're talking about Arsenal, and we can broadcast that to the whole wide world.
After spending almost 5 years as one of the main voices on AFTV, he stepped out on his own, growing his platform to over 100,000 combined subscribers by sharing Arsenal news, analysis, and opinion pieces across multiple channels.
It was an idea I had before, I parked it, and then when I picked it up again, I pivoted from what it was to fit what I'd learned and what I was doing now.
Did you already know exactly what you were going to do with your own channels when you made that pivot, or did you have to make it up along the way?
I think it's basically how much conviction do you have in your opinions on football. That helps you feel like you belong in these conversations.
We sat down to unpack his story, the thinking behind what he does, and the mindset and worldview he's developed along the way.
So there's a degree of delusion because there's no evidence of it yet, but it's also by design that I'm putting myself in a position to be able to go and reach those things.
James, welcome to Delusion by Design.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I saw the one with Alex. I don't know if I've got any pearls of wisdom. I'll just try and just answer your questions, and hopefully, we'll have a good chat about YouTube content, this world. You know, here we are with cameras and lights in a studio space, and like in a weird way, it's kind of just doing what we do every day. But normally, I'm critiquing Arsenal, not so much myself. So this will be fun.
No, 100%. I think you have a bunch of pearls of wisdom to share, and yeah, I look forward to digging into it. So, I mean, to start us off, for those that don't know you, who is James and what does he do?
Oh, okay. You summed it up quite well. I study sports journalism. I'm a big Arsenal fan. And I started working for AFTV just around the time the pandemic was sort of, I think we were maybe a year into it. And since then, I've basically been making YouTube content. I'm just a big Arsenal fan that talks about football, really.
Love that. And, we'll dig into your story. We'll look at the different moves you made. But, to focus a bit first on where you're at now and what you're currently doing, both from your own experience and also what you've seen from other people, because that's something I think is worth digging into, because a lot of these guys who are succeeding in what you're doing as well, right? So just off the bat, what does it mean to you to be great at football YouTube?
It's so weird. I don't think of it as like a career or a profession you're like looking to be great in. Because it's just talking about your football team. And I know it's more than that. I know it is more than that. But because a lot of it feels like you're just talking about your football team, and when you're losing, you're venting your frustrations. When you're winning, you're celebrating, and a lot of it's captured on camera. To answer your question, what does it mean to be great in football YouTube? I don't know. I think some people might measure that by views. Some people might measure that by community building. Some people might measure that by the adventures they get to have, like traveling the world, watching football, the people they get to interview, the things they get to do. So I don't really know. I mean, that's not to say there aren't people who aren't great at it. I mean, look at Mark Goldbridge, look at Robbie, look at Rory Jennings, look at loads of people who have expressions who, I would consider them great at what they do. But I don't know what it is to be great at it. I think everyone probably measures that differently. And I think it's like I said earlier, I don't know. I've never really worded it in that way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make any sense?
For sure. I think, it comes down to subjective kind of judgment, right?
Yeah.
And even based on that, like, what would you say, with your channels, what are the kind of metrics you look at to actually measure success?
Yeah. I can't pretend views doesn't matter. Like, of course it does. It directly correlates to income and revenue, which is ultimately, any job, as much as it might be a passion, as much as it might be a big part of like who you are, and it might be part hobby as well. Obviously, that kind of stuff matters. I get my most satisfaction out of you make a video, yes, people are watching it and people are having fun with it, but it's people in the comment section saying, thank you for capturing what I was thinking, or thank you for putting numbers and data to an opinion I had. That's probably when it feels the best. But at the same time, I've got my podcast with Sharoy, which I love doing. Then we've got the Loose Cannons podcast, me, Turkish and Jordan, with alternating guests. They're just really fun to do. And I often, we record at maybe 8 a.m., which can be a good start to the day, or sometimes we record at midnight. So I come off that recording at 2 a.m. I'm absolutely wired because I've just kind of been having a great time laughing with my friends about football. That helps when Arsenal are doing well. when when they're not and there's struggles, then yeah, it feels tougher to have that kind of laugh. But either way, you just enjoy working with people.
100%. And you mentioned views and trying to maximize that. We'll go deeper into rage bait and the different tactics people use
Yeah.
to generate some views sometimes. But do you think blindly chasing views is like sound advice or generally like a good way to go with YouTube in general?
No, no, I don't think that. Look, I appreciate that everyone, I suppose, does content differently. From my perspective, it's more like the best advice I ever got was from Turkish, actually, who I worked with for a long time on AFTV, and now we have our podcast. He always said to me, James, just make the content you want to make. Don't worry about what you think people want to watch, because if you worry about that, then you kind of force yourself down a road that maybe feels a bit less authentic, and then that can come through on camera. If you make the content you want to make, you're going to be motivated to kind of keep going, to keep making then the next video, the follow-up to that one. You start analysing Arsenal from the perspective of the research you've done before, because it's been research that you felt was important to do. Even if that video didn't maybe take off in the way you hoped, it's still kind of all good research for when you're then talking about Arsenal the next time those sort of same points come around. So, no, I think it depends what you mean by chasing views, I suppose. What, like clickbait titles, making videos that you see other people are making as well, I suppose, or maybe being maybe slightly performative to pander to a certain audience. I don't know. I just think you're never gonna. I don't want to say the word make it. Sounds very dramatic, but I think you're going to get the results you want on YouTube. And I'm no expert on YouTube, trust me. I don't think many people are. But I don't think you're going to get the results you want if you don't make content that you can consistently keep coming back to and keep having the motivation to keep doing it. Because I think consistency is a massive part. Always being there, being consistent with your opinions, being consistent in your delivery. And so if you start making something that doesn't come naturally, you're just not going to do that long term. You will burn out, you will hit a wall, you will get frustrated. So it's such a cliche, I know, but really just make the content you want to make. That doesn't mean don't improve, that doesn't mean don't learn, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the things that can be hard and that have hurdles in front of them. But if you're really passionate about making it, then you will keep doing it.
I think that makes a lot of sense, yeah. And you touched on consistency. I'd add to the list you made consistency of output, which is what I think you really shine in.
Thank you.
Being able to show up every day, multiple times a day, dozens of times a week, and just keep producing.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, man. And what did it take to actually get good and, become the version that you are today?
Let's start with the bit that doesn't give myself much credit. I think you need a bit of luck, to be honest. So I fell into YouTube, and I actually really mean fell in, because it's funny, everyone knows the Goonerverse has the 2 YouTube channels, but originally the Goonerverse was the name of a comic book project that I had in my Masters. So I did my Masters, this was around 2018-19, and was it? Yeah, I think it was 18-19, maybe 17-18, I'm pretty sure it was 18-19. And one of the projects, well, you could take the project in lots of directions. Some people made documentaries, some people just took other routes in the world of sports journalism. I went down the route of I want to build a website, and it was meant to be, the Goonerverse was digestible Arsenal content for younger football fans, or for younger Arsenal fans. So get into knowing what's going on with Arsenal via characters and superheroes, and it's all the real news, it's all the real stories, but packaged in a more kind of light-hearted, cartoony way. So that was the original idea. We built the website, we kind of started Instagram, we did some bits, and then I got into full-time work. Pandemic happened, so I kept working on the Goonerverse. Then AFTV were looking for some presenters. I threw my hat in the ring, hadn't done anything on camera, and I was lucky enough to be hired with Cecil at the time. So, yeah, that was October 2020. So the Goonerverse was then put aside for a little bit, and then the Goonerverse came back maybe 3 to 4 years after that, because I at that point decided I wanted to make some of my own YouTube content, some of my own Arsenal content, and I just thought it was a name that, I don't know, I always liked to... Originally it was because I like to collaborate with a lot of people, but I don't collaborate really now on the channels. But the Goonerverse is kind of like universe of Arsenal news and Arsenal information. I just thought I'll stick with it. It was one of my prouder names, that. Yeah, of all the things I've come up with, I'm quite happy with that name. But yeah, that's basically how it came to that. But to actually answer your question maybe a bit more directly, which I don't think I have, you were saying, what did it kind of take, I suppose?
Yeah.
It took a lot of, like I said, luck, creativity, I suppose. You know, coming up with good branding with my editor, coming up with particular forms of content that I don't think other people were doing in the way that I wanted to do it. A lot of learning from everyone around me. The people I worked with at AFTV were amazing. There were some people who were just brilliant behind the camera, so learning from them. Brilliant in terms of understanding what made content good, brilliant in terms of understanding the algorithm and all that. So it was just learning, and then also scouring YouTube and seeing, like, you know, quite literally what was working for other people. And again, you asked earlier, you shouldn't view chase. You shouldn't go and go, oh, well, they're doing that, so I'm going to do that. But you can take little things. You can go, oh, the way they packaged that thumbnail or that title is really interesting. Is there a way I can incorporate that very naturally into what I'm doing? So there's a lot of just learning around the people around, learning from the people around me. And I was very lucky because I was in the four walls of AFTV and this hub where there were so many content creators coming in and out. We were filming all the time, every day. And that meant you just kind of naturally absorbed a lot of information. So yeah, I think I was very lucky to have been exposed to the AFTV workings, but also the audience they had, because when you've got a big audience like that, naturally helps your profile grow, but also helps you see, okay, what did the audience like from the content I did on AFTV? So if I did a piece by myself, did the audience take to that? Did they enjoy that? If we covered breaking news, did they like the way I did it? So it's just little things like that. You just learn over time from lots of feedback, basically, as well.
100%. We'll dig a lot deeper into your time at
Yeah.
AFTV. But just before that, you know, you mentioned luck and kind of falling into it. Did you ever see yourself as a YouTuber, as a content creator, as someone in front of the camera before you actually started at AFTV?
I always thought I would do something content related, whether it was writing articles, and I thought it would be in sport. But to answer it simply, I didn't think I was going to do YouTube, no.
So yeah, I mean, you know, you kind of gave a speed run through your story, but to really
Yeah.
dive deep into AFTV, like if you had to sum up, you know, the 5 years, the time you spent there as a whole, what
Yeah.
was that like?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, I had a great time. It's funny, when I announced that I'd left, I didn't like say too much because I just thought there's not really a lot to say. Like, you know, I'm no longer AFTV and let's keep it moving. And it kind of blew up and people were speculating and think, oh my word. I tried not to say too much because I didn't want to, you know, make it a bigger thing. But I think sometimes maybe you don't say enough and people just run away with their own ideas and stories. I just had a great time. I loved everyone I worked with. A lot of them are still friends. I was always encouraged by Robbie, by everyone at AFTV to make videos I wanted to make. There was a lot of great, you know, the resources, the facilities were incredible. And they took me around the world, like watching football. I mean, you know, whether it be kind of Leicester away, Man City away, Norwich away on Boxing Day, things like that I loved doing. But then I was so lucky to go on tour and see, you know, to go watch Arsenal play in Philadelphia, New York, and LA. Like, it was incredible. And other places, Washington, DC, Orlando. I was so lucky, Singapore. So I was so lucky to do it. I loved it. And I had so much fun. And it came to, I think, a natural end that probably didn't occur so naturally because it happened kind of, you know, maybe a month into the season. And, you know, I think had maybe communication been a little bit better on both sides, it would have just come to maybe a more natural end than it perhaps looked like it did. But I had a really great time. I think it was time to change. And I think like anything in life, you just start to want to do different things.
But we'll
But,
dig into the ending
Yeah.
a bit more. But you know, just to kind of take you back to the very start of that, right? The selection process. You were saying before you've never really been on camera. Yeah, you were studying to be a journalist, but you know,
Yeah.
they had a selection process to actually get through. And then once you were in there, again, from the outside looking in, you seemed like you were someone that kind of almost rose through the ranks quite quickly and became like a big personality within there. Why do you think, or how do you think you were able to actually stand out within that space?
Again, like, it's so kind of you to say, but genuinely, I never felt like I never looked at it that way. Like I rose through the ranks or like I became a really big personality on that channel, because I always thought, you know, from Robbie to lead judges to, I mean, Turkish certainly was, to Troops, like there were a lot of big personalities. And then AFTV went through a change, and me and Cecil being there, I think, was part of it. Turkish being involved a lot more was part of it too. And it started to cover Arsenal in lots of ways, and a big part of that was also a journalistic side. It was covering breaking news. It was, getting regular previews and reviews out, and having call-ins for fans to join, and it just widened the amount of content it did massively from when it started. But I wasn't a part of that, early days. And sorry, I've gone off a bit of a tangent. What was the question again? Sort of how did I
Kind of,
find my place there?
yeah.
Again, like Robbie was very receptive to any idea, really, in terms of individual content I wanted to make. So if I wanted to do breakdowns on a player, he would encourage it. If I wanted to do analysis before or after games, he would encourage it. So I just tried lots of different things. And there's lots of things that I thought were good ideas at the time. And I thought, well, this is a big platform, so I think we'll find out quite quickly whether it sinks or swims. And some worked and some didn't. We tried to do like tactical analysis before a game. That never really took off. But then I started working with Graham on tactical insight after the game, and that people really loved that. So it wasn't a case of, people don't want tactics, but maybe it's a timing thing. When you do it, how long does that piece of content have to breathe? So you're just learning all these things. So I suppose also just consistency. I was on AFTV a lot. I was probably like 7 videos a week, but sometimes 12, but sometimes 4, but sometimes, So if you're just exposed to an audience with a channel that's got 1 point however million subscribers, you're naturally, I think, people are going to recognize your face more often. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And that's what I was saying about consistency of output
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
That's something, yeah, even from back then, you've carried it through in your own platform as well. You
Yeah.
keep pushing.
Thank you, man.
And again, when you look at AFTV, what do you think makes them as successful as they are?
I think being the first to do it the way they did it helps. Now, I know Red Men were there. Obviously, Mark Goldbridge's been huge for ages with the United Stand. I think the concept of interviewing fans outside the ground, I might be wrong. I don't know anyone who's ever done that. And I don't know if I know anyone who's done it as successfully as AFTV since. I think they really that was the USP, and they grabbed it. And they did a really great job, and they were so consistent. Every game, no matter how big or important, whether it was the academy team going out or the first teamers away at Old Trafford, whatever it was, they were there. And then they did tour. I think they even covered some games in Dubai. So I think that helped. Personalities, they had big personalities who weren't afraid to say what they thought. That made the content quite compelling. I think people were like, well, I'm going to tune in because it feels very authentic and very real. Whether people always agreed with what was being said or not, I don't think you could question whether they meant what was being said. You then had this kind of new wave of media, with social media blowing up, like Twitter getting bigger, Instagram getting bigger, YouTube becoming bigger. So the timing was right as well. Arsenal have just been such a whirlwind of a club. It's like Arsenal went through bad patches and won FA Cups. We're a much better team now. We haven't won anything. And so the natural kind of up and down of following Arsenal, and I see it when I'm doing content now, it's just like, I don't know, that makes Arsenal fans, I suppose, want to tune in more because there's always a story. And if there's a story, then there's always content to be made out of it. So, yeah, I think what made AFTV successful was immense consistency, changing of the landscape, being one of the first, being relatable to some. And yeah, I think it's probably all of the above. I'm trying to think of anything else to add, but I think it's probably, unless I'm missing anything. Can you think of anything I'm missing, maybe?
Honestly,
Because you watched it, didn't you?
yeah,
Like,
from early days.
So what made
been
you
tuned
watch
in.
it? Well,
I think it was, at first, comic relief, right? In the end of the day, like, we were balls deep in the banter era when I started tuning in. And then I think you summed it up perfectly. It's like if you take a Venn diagram with a bunch of circles and they overlap in one place, it's like AFTV kind of met at that one place where everything just kind of aligned and fell into place. And then you start getting, again, personalities that people tune into more consistently and, maybe overanalyzing. But even if you look at the post-match interviews you mentioned, like specific people after every game will get more views because people know to come back to them because they like their takes as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there, as I said, like so many different factors kind of played into one. I think you summed it up really well. And again, going back to your time there, outside of YouTube specifics and what worked and whatnot, when you look at it through, I guess, like a people perspective, are there like key lessons that you take with you from your time there that you could reflect on and like, yeah, point out to that you learned from, again, the people, the experiences you had?
It's a good question. Oh, I wish I had something more profound to say. I don't really know. And the reason I say that is because I don't think I've had time to stop and think about it. You know, I stopped working with AFTV in September, or October, something like that. And it's just been game after game and football after football and work after work since then. I don't really think I've had time to stop and reflect on a lot of it, other than I know I had a great time, and I know that it obviously helped me massively to be in the position I'm in now. I don't know if I have any kind of major reflections. I think it's important to work with people who share the same passion. I think that was such a big thing around AFTV. Like, we'd record something and we'd get however we felt off our chest. And then the minute the cameras were off, production would be like, oh, I'm so glad you said this. And yeah, I've been thinking that. And the conversation carries on. They may as well leave the cameras on because production have got something great to add. So maybe it always felt like you were quite rich with ideas and it was quite thought-provoking, talking about Arsenal there because there's so many around you, so many opinions. So I think it's always good to be around people who... I mean, my editor, Max, shout out, and he's not just an editor, he's production, he's brilliant. Max is a massive Arsenal fan. So when we're throwing around ideas for content, it's so good to bounce off him because he is like, well, this is what I'd be interested in, and this is what I would click on, and this is what I think the Arsenal fan base are feeling. So that helps. So maybe I think I've sort of landed on something there, which is if you're working with people who share the same passion. I know that sounds a bit obvious, but you can get people. For example, my editor, he doesn't technically have to be an Arsenal fan if he can edit. But I don't think that works. I think it works because not only is Max a great guy, and shout out to Max if he is watching it, because he's been massive for me and my channel. But at the same time, it just adds so much that he's also an Arsenal fan. So we can trade ideas so naturally between us for the content.
Yeah, I think it's the importance of people, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, once you get to the summer bar transfer window, you might have some time to sit back and reflect.
I think I will. I think I have this joke with my girlfriend. I say, I get 1 month off every 2 years. And she's like, okay, what month's that? I say June. June of a non-international tournament year. So there's either the Euros, year off, World Cup, year off, Euros, year off. So it's not actually like that, but it can feel like that sometimes. It can feel like I've got 1 month every 2 years. And maybe when that June comes around, or maybe the World Cup this year, I might actually stop and just reflect on the last year. But I don't really know what that will bring. If I'm really honest, I think it's such a fast-paced industry. You just roll with it and everyone kind of moves on and keeps moving and that's it. And so some of this stuff can seem more dramatic than it is. Blah, blah's not on this channel anymore. They're not working with that person anymore. It's not. I just think it's so fast moving. There's always something happening. People are really busy and you keep it going.
Yeah, I think it's less about the actual happenings and more so like the principles you can take out of it and like reflections. Like, for example, out of what you said, I think people is a big thing, in your experience. And, making sure you're around the right people. And maybe now that you're running your own business, kind of going into hiring and actually like making sure you have the right profiles in place for the right things.
Yeah.
That might be something.
Yeah, for sure. Well, also, yeah, okay. I mean, that's sort of poking at my brain a little bit. That's kind of making me wonder. Maybe I have to come back for a part 2 with the kind of more answers to these things.
Definitely.
And yeah, maybe the people thing's a big thing, but also like listening to the audience. I know you're often sort of trained, don't worry too much about the comments. I don't listen to the comments, don't worry. But also at the same time, it's like you need to know when to read a comment and go, right, they're clearly just trying to abuse me. They clearly haven't watched all the content. They're clearly just having a go. Let's just move past it. And actually reading something going, okay, hold on. This comment is saying that I spoke too fast, or that I haven't done this topic enough justice, or I missed some important context. Listen to that, because ultimately you're making the content and you're getting direct feedback from the people who are enjoying it. So listen to them to a degree. That was maybe something I learned during my time at AFTV because, well, I don't know, because you're on so many videos that you just get so much feedback. So it gets to a point where you go, well, if I want to improve, let's hear what the subscribers are saying about it.
And that's actually something I really wanted to dig into with you,
Yeah.
right? Because, you know, it's a platform that gets a lot of troll comments, a lot of
Yeah.
hate comments. How did you kind of learn to deal with those and, like, yeah, come to see them over time?
It bothered me. I won't pretend it didn't bother me. It's so funny. I feel like a hypocrite sometimes doing this content because I am critical of footballers who I'll never be as good as. I'm critical of a football manager who I'll never be as good as. I'm critical of football people, board members, owners, directors, who I don't really have a clue what they do. And yet I might read one negative comment and go, oh, I feel like I need to reply. I feel like I need to have a go. And all these players and managers and directors, they're never really replying to us. And then when one of them does, we have a go at them saying, oh, you should be keeping quiet. You know, don't listen to the noise. Keep your head down. So I feel like a bit of a hypocrite. A, that I reply sometimes, and B, that it bothers me, because in a different way, it's, well, no, now we're tuning to your content and we've got some feedback for you and you're acting up when you don't like it. Now, to be fair, I do my best not to reply. I do my best to actually stop and think, okay, even if this has been delivered in the wrong way, is there some merit to what they're saying? Can you learn something from it? But it did bother me. I didn't do as many watch-alongs in my last year at AFTV, and I actually was quite candid with them about that. I said I struggle with kind of the live comments whilst processing a game that's happening right now. So I don't do watch-alongs on the Goonerverse. That's completely by design, because I want to come on with the full picture. Otherwise, other comments, I think you just eventually develop a bit of a thicker skin for it. Whether that skin is thick enough, I don't know, because it can still bother me sometimes.
Yeah.
But also, you pick your battles, and sometimes people on social media are just fundamentally outrageous. Sometimes they just fundamentally lie. So you just got to say, I never said that. Like, show me where I said that. But then I always think, who knows what other people are going through? Who knows what other people are... I don't know if this person I'm arguing with is 15 or 42. I don't know if they are living the most amazing life or if they're really struggling right now. So I try and be respectful in response, if not ignore it. But it's hard. And I feel for footballers, to be fair, and people in the media space, because if I'm struggling with a few comments, I can't imagine what the actual professional athletes are talked about on every back page, on every radio show, on every TV show, on every broadcast, on every podcast, on every YouTube channel. I can't imagine how they're feeling dealing with it.
And do you think, you mentioned developing a thicker skin. Do you think you managed to change your relationship with the comment section over time?
I don't know. I'm very lucky. I think the Goonerverse has a great community. That's not me saying that others don't have that. I'm just saying, like, that's where I pay my most attention to comments, and I think largely people are really supportive and constructive, and even when there's a bit of hate or there's a bit of mocking, it never really crosses a line. I've never thought, no, I need to do something about this kind of level of hate or abuse. It's never really got to that. So yeah, I think it's just, I genuinely try to present myself as like respectably as possible, like on videos, and if someone disagrees, I try to explain why I disagree or why I think they're wrong, rather than just sort of say, you're talking nonsense, like, get out of my chat, whatever. Because some people might respond like that. I try not to. And I hope that encourages people to speak as fairly and considerably as possible in the comment section. But social media is like, I'll be honest, it's quite a dark place. Like, there's a lot of things that you never get away with saying in life to people. And there's a lot of, I don't know, there's free speech, sure, but then there's just pure hate. And there is a lot of that out there. So sometimes you just go, I'm going to switch off my phone. I'm just going to log out and just put it to a side, because it's not real life. It's an algorithm. It's digits on a screen. And yes, there might be real opinions. There might be real people behind them. But you can also just log off and go, oh, there's no more noise. Oh, that feels quite peaceful. So yeah, sometimes just do that.
Literally. But so did you already know like exactly what you were going to do with your own channels when you made that pivot, or did you kind of have to make it up along the way?
I had a good idea of what I thought I was good at, and I wanted to play to those strengths. But no, I didn't have it like, yeah, brilliant. Like when I'm full time on the Goonerverse, this is the content offering. Because even to this day, Max and I have tried different things that, we've tried. We have dropped one or two previews on the day of a game. Didn't really work. We've tried a few other things, but also it's time management. Like, Max is like editing for a lot of people. I'm also I don't know, like, I've been lucky enough that I've been on TalkSport recently in the club. So, yeah, there gets a point where it's like you don't want to overdo it. So you just kind of roll with the news and you roll with what's happening.
Definitely. I mean, you mentioned TalkSport there, the club as well, other kind of platforms you've been on. What has your experience, again, now that you're on your own, kind of going on these different media platforms, how has that kind of world taken to you and how do you like it?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. And I think this was part of like, when I was saying that, it comes a point where maybe you just fancy doing something different. I enjoy that on the Goonerverse. I'm focusing on Arsenal. But when I'm going on the club or on Talk Sport, I can talk about Liverpool and Villa and Man City and Man United and Chelsea and what's going on with all these clubs, because there's so many stories in football. There's so many stories. But it's been really fun talking about football more widely with great people. Everyone on the Talk Sport team. That's one thing I've been really lucky with. Everyone I've worked with, from AFTV to Talk Sport to the club, they're all great people. And fans around the world might have different opinion on the individuals because of their footballing opinions or whatever. But I can categorically say I've had a great time working with people in this space. I've been very, very lucky with that.
And that's a reflection Alex brought as well in terms of the types of people in
I
the
saw that.
football
He
creator
did say
space.
that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense, the more people you speak to, and, you have to separate the art from the artist, right?
Yeah.
But man, to transition a bit into, the way you view things, right? So again, on our talk, you said something that was interesting to me, which is you essentially said you were, wanting and studying to be a journalist, and you ended up becoming a personality at AFTV. So was that something you kind of had to take time to wrap your head around in terms of like the identity shift behind that?
Funnily enough, no, because I did my master's in sports journalism at St Mary's in Twickenham, and they were really good at drilling it into you. I say drilling it, it was probably a subconscious thing, but they really were like, YouTube, commentary, punditry, podcasting is all journalism. We think of journalism as interviewing people or writing articles or investigative pieces or whatever, but all of it is journalism. So I very quickly was like, oh, okay, I'm doing this type of journalism now, not that type of journalism. So no, I think it was a little bit weird adapting to, oh my God, I've just been watching these people on their channel and now suddenly I'm on it. That was a bit strange. But pivoting in terms of you're not doing the kind of journalism you thought you were going to do, James, no, that didn't feel too strange. That felt quite normal. It just all happened so quickly. I mean, genuinely, I know a lot of people say this, the 5 years at AFTV flew by. I cannot believe it was 5 years. I genuinely can't believe it. But it was, apparently, according to the dates.
So it was never something you really had to like stop and question. Is this what I really want?
What I'm learning from this podcast and this interview is I don't do that much stopping and reflecting, which is so strange because I do on I do on the micro stuff. So sometimes I have a conversation with someone and I go, oh, did I say that right? Or do they think I meant that? Or then I do a lot of reflection on maybe more day-to-day things in life. But from a work perspective, and I mean purely work, because I actually think I like to think I'm very self-reflective. But from a work perspective, I reflect on what worked, what didn't, whatever. But I think almost the more macro stuff, like how much things have changed and you're going from this to that to that, I just think it happens so quickly that I haven't stopped to reflect that much. Although I had a weird end of 2024, which made me kind of stop doing as much content. And in that time, I was quite reflective. I was like, am I enjoying this, doing the way I'm doing it? What's next for me? But that made me a little bit more reflective, just because it was just like a tougher time in my life. And I flew to Australia. That always helps. Going to the other side of the world makes you see things a bit differently sometimes. But yeah, I don't think I've ever really stopped. Sorry, I wish I could say more. I don't know if I've ever really stopped and fully internalized everything that has happened over 5 years, let alone the last 5 months.
Did you learn to get good or at least improve on camera? Or was that something that you think kind of came naturally to you?
Huh. I'll give myself some credit. I think it did come somewhat naturally to me. That's not to say I wasn't nervous, but I think it did come somewhat naturally to me. But you do try to learn and improve. You do. People find it really weird. My housemates find it so weird that I watch myself back. And I've had a lot of creators say, I can't hear myself. It's too cringe. And it probably is quite cringe that I watch my own videos, but it's not even like a really strict self-reflection thing where I'm like, right, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? It's almost like a little, do I want to, even though I've done the video, do I want to hear about this? And if I click on it, I'm still listening to it, then I know then kind of know what I put out must be quite interesting because I've planned the video and I've recorded it and I still want to hear it. I don't know, that might sound really weird to a lot of people. It probably is. But then from that, you pick up like, oh, there were too many ums in that. There were too many likes in that. There were too many pauses. You stuttered on your words too much. And so you just, for the next one, you just kind of remember that. You just, okay, calm down, go again.
I find it funny that you think most people, yes, but creators as a whole wouldn't watch back their videos.
I don't know. The ones I've spoken to say they don't.
Really?
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, essentially, so on this couch, just before Christmas, I had Hassan, who's a sales coach, a friend of mine. And he was speaking basically about this notion of self-criticism. And if you want to improve, you need to be able to watch yourself back to improve. Right.
That's good.
Yeah. And he's saying it in, a sales context and, getting better as a sales rep. But especially when it comes to content, and the whole thing is essentially your ability to deliver the message. I think it's super important to be able to watch yourself back and actually, like, as you said, pick out on the ums and ahs and the way that your voice goes and where you're looking and all these little details, right?
Sometimes, and no one ever sees this because why would they see it? But sometimes your video is the 7th attempt and they don't see all the errors before. And that maybe makes it come across as like a touch inauthentic because it sounds like you're just trying to rehearse and get some lines out. But it's not. You make an error and you want to be a bit of a perfectionist, so you go again and you try again. But more often than not, I sort of leave errors. There's certain errors I'm happy to just acknowledge in the video.
For sure. And, you've been around a lot of famous people overall. Have you ever had to deal with imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Yeah, so imposter syndrome is in like, do I belong here, basically? Yeah. But it's difficult because I've never... Again, to give myself a bit of credit, I don't think I've ever been on The Club or TalkSport or AFTV or Loose Cannons with Turkish and Jordan, who in their right have done amazing work in this space. I don't think I've ever sat there and thought, oh, I don't deserve to be here, because I believe I worked very hard and I believe in what I'm doing. But I've definitely sat there and thought, oh my word, I watch these guys. Like, I'm on The Club set. This is the channel I tune into. I listen to Boovie and Rory and Adam McCullough. And same with, when I first met Turkish and Robbie and everyone. And it's fun, I was about to say Cecil, but Cecil and I started at the same time. Definitely had it on tour. Definitely had it when I go with AFTV and we get press access. I definitely at times thought, oof, I don't know if I should be here. Why would the players answer any of my questions? I remember asking Arteta a question once. And I was so glad I delivered the question well. And he answered it very well, to be fair. But definitely in that moment, I thought, I was a bit like, I don't know if this is where I should be right now. But you just got to push through that. Because we as fans sometimes might have questions that journalists don't ask and that fans want to hear the answer to. So, I don't know, sometimes you just got to get past it. I just thought, if they were going to talk about football and I had something I genuinely thought was worth adding to it, then I was comfortable. I think that was kind of ultimately it. As long as, if I'm going to ask Mikel Arteta a question, I'm going to put my hand up and ask him a question, I need to feel really confident that I think it's a good question. And I think largely I've always felt pretty confident in what I had to add to a discussion. I think it's basically how much conviction do you have in your opinions on football. That helps you feel like you belong in these conversations.
Okay, we were speaking about output quantity before, right? And, I've seen you post multiple videos a day, dozens of videos a week.
Yeah.
Is your approach generally nowadays very, quantity heavy? Is that what you tend to prioritize?
It never was. I was always actually the opposite. I was always like, post less, focus on real quality in everything you do. And then I realized that why does more necessarily mean less quality? And so I focus a lot on what is it that I think I understand well, and it was what are people talking about? I think I was always quite good ear to the ground at like, oh, this is what's blown up on Twitter today. This is what everyone's talking about. Now, some are really obvious, like Arsenal lose to Manchester United. Obviously, everyone talks about that. But there were certain other things that maybe kind of did the rounds on X that everyone was talking about that for whatever reason the mainstream wouldn't pick up on, or most Arsenal channels wouldn't go into detail on. But then I created Goonerverse News because I wanted somewhere where I didn't have time to research. I didn't have time to do analysis on it. It was purely, I've got to get a reaction out to this. I just have things to say. And I might not feel quite the same about it in a day or two. But at the moment, this is my feeling in the moment. And that counts as something. I think some people might be like, well, don't put out a video until you know what you absolutely feel about something. But sometimes how you feel in the moment is as important. So I just wanted to do things that were news-based, that were topical, that people were talking about, and feel like I was bringing something to that conversation.
And you mentioned your community before. Is that something, again, you were intentional that you wanted to build? You wanted to have a strong community, a supportive community? Or is that something you think kind of just happened and you were able to attract based on who you are, what you were putting out?
I think it was probably natural. I'd be giving myself too much credit if I said anything if it was intentional. Someone like Turkish, Curtis as well, they're very, very good at building communities. Whenever they go live, there's like a minimum set in the thousands of people who will be like, yep, you're live, I'm there. And so when they go live, like take the Big Six, for example. When Turkish is live, doing the super chats and comments, a lot of them he recognises as regular super chatters. It's people who are tuning in all the time. And then there's back and forth between maybe a Chelsea fan and Tobes the Tottenham fan, or Said the United fan with a City fan who's sending comments in. And Turkish maybe goes back and forth with people whose names they recognise, who tune in all the time. That feels like very intentional community building. It feels like I'm acknowledging you, I'm talking to you directly, we've got a rapport and a back and forth. There's a history to our conversation. So people who tune in every week, they know, he's back to say this. That is very intentional. I don't think I've done anything particularly intentional. Now, I'm trying to now. So like the player ratings, we do as a live stream so people can give me their ratings, and we do a tier list system. And I say, right, I rank Saka as good. What do you all give him? And the comments all fly in. So that is the most intentional I've been for a little while. But no, I can't say I've been particularly intentional with it. I just think maybe the style of content is something that applies to certain people. I don't know. I don't know. To people who, because it's quite analytical content, they want to reply with something more analytical or something more conversational. Oh, interesting this, but I think this. Oh, you should have mentioned this. And so it sparks a degree of good conversation. Whereas, I don't know, maybe if I was more reactive, which to be fair, Goonerverse News is, but maybe if I was more reactive in a different way, people would be more reactive in the comments to my reaction. I don't know, but I wish I could say it was more intentional than it was. Turkish you should speak to, because he's been very good at building communities, and very deliberately doing that.
And when you started your channel, obviously, you wouldn't do it if it wasn't something you were comfortable with or confident you could make something of. Is that confidence that you approached it, again, something that came naturally to you because you had seen it? Was it something that you had to kind of work on believing, like that initial belief of, I can do this on my own? Like, how are you able to foster that?
Some videos I did solo on AFTV, so that makes you feel like from a content perspective you can do it. And then the question of, is there an audience? You can only just try. You can only just. It's funny because when I moved to Arsenal content, yes, I was going to have more traction making Arsenal content because I was on AFTV, but also, I'd done videos about Liverpool, about Aston Villa that took off and did really well, and I really enjoyed doing those because it was kind of me trying to show the world, hey, I can talk about football more generally as well. It's just trial and error. The confidence thing is interesting. I didn't really. It's like I said earlier about imposter syndrome. Like being in a room with certain people was like, whoa, okay, I watch all your channels. I watch this content. This is kind of really strange. You almost have to tell yourself, stop being a fan. Be be an equal, speak about football. But the confidence comes from, again, do you just believe that what you're saying is well researched and makes sense? And I do stand by my opinions. I don't really go over the top. I don't think my opinion is particularly wild. People can challenge it, and it makes you kind of wonder, oh, do I really stand by what I'm saying? But largely, I think the opinions I give, I feel quite confident about. So that helps you deliver it with confidence on camera. That helps you feel confident about putting a video out. And then there might be the odd one I overthink. Like I mentioned, sometimes I overthink, going, oh, should I do this video? I did one titled, Should Arsenal Fans Be Booing? And it was because there was some boos heard at the end of the Arsenal-Man United game. And I really doubted that I should do that live stream. So I thought, you're just piling on the negativity. Is it just a bit too controversial? Just stick to the team. But then I asked myself, James, do you really believe your opinion that actually the booing was kind of fine and you kind of get it, even though that might wind up a lot of people that you feel that way? And I thought, no, I do. Like, I do see this differently to others. So I did the video or the live stream. And again, most comments were like, yeah, fair. Like, I get what you're saying. So sometimes you just need to, again, ask yourself, do you really believe what you're saying? You stress check it. There's nothing crazy in there. There's nothing, there's nothing ludicrous or ridiculous or under-researched. Okay, no, I'll just go for it. So, yeah.
Do you ever get tempted to go down the rage bait route?
So rage bait in terms of let me say things I don't think are necessarily true or frame it in a certain way to get a reaction? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, more so the framing, right? So, like, for example, lost to Man United, world is over kind of headline, title, everything is trash, we need to start over, sack Arteta.
I just don't believe that. If I believed that, I wouldn't call it rage baiting. I would genuinely be saying, my title for my Man United video was embarrassing, full stop, with like a swearing emoji. That's how I felt. I don't think it was fake in any way or rage baity, but yeah, some people might have seen that and gone, oh, he's really angry, I'm going to click on it. But it's just genuinely how I felt. I remember when we drew to Chelsea 1-1. They were down to 10 men. Mourinho equalised. And everyone was, not everyone, a lot of people were being very harsh on the team. Missed opportunity, you should have gone for it, why didn't you kill them off? They had 10 men, not good enough performance. And I saw it very differently, so I just ran with that. Ended up being one of my most viewed videos. So again, just make the content you want to make sure you believe it, and it will carry more weight.
Love that. Do you think anyone could succeed with YouTube?
Yeah, I'd say so. Trying to ask myself why I wouldn't think that. YouTube's amazing because it said, yeah, you don't need studios and great microphones. Love that we have one here. But you don't need all those things to make a good YouTube video. And that was a huge part of what drove me to make Goonerverse News. It was, I can't always be at my desk. I can't always have the setup I've invested in. Sometimes I'm just out and about and I've got my phone. So just do it. And that was a big learning from just like watching YouTube in general and how people did things very, very differently. I think if you're consistent, authentic, fair, yeah, I think almost anyone can. You've got to have a reason to do it. You can't just turn on the camera and talk about anything. You've got to have a plan to a degree. You've got to have an idea for what it is you want to do. Because you've got to ask the audience, like, to keep coming back to a degree. If you're consistent, you make a certain type of content, then they know when you upload, I know what to expect. I know the kind of thing I'm going to get from this. Great question. Do you think anyone can make it on YouTube?
I understand where you're coming from based on the fact that when you kind of went out to venture at it on your own, you had a whole backlog of 5 years of a huge media production, and then you went into a niche, the one that you had been in, this whole time, where naturally, like, I don't want to say the barrier to entry is lower, but it requires less complexity, if that makes sense. So I think, again, like, with your knowledge and the skill set you had and like the awareness of what works, it makes a lot of sense that you think you'd be able to like go at it and, make a success of it on your own. Do I think anyone could kind of pick up a camera and make it work, figure it out for themselves? Probably not, you know, because I do think it requires a level of being able to look back at your own videos and take feedback and learn from people who are ahead of you and all these things, right? And I
Yeah.
think you had that kind of compressed and as a part of your journey before you even ventured out on your own.
Well, so that's really interesting because I think maybe then we looked looked a little bit differently. Because I agree with you. If you're not willing to self-reflect, you're not willing to learn from what your comments are saying, or learn from what videos worked, what didn't. Look at what others are doing in the space. If you're not willing to adapt and adjust, if you're not willing to bring a degree of personality and authenticity and all these things, then no, I don't think you can. But I think almost anyone has it in them to be able to do that. It's just a case of either comes naturally to you, you've got to work a bit harder to make sure that you're ticking those things off the list when you're making the content. Because some people are just very sporadic. Some people, and they have great success with it. There's no plan. I'm just going to make a video on this, or I'm going to do a live on this. And they've grown very organically doing that. Whereas I try to have more of a plan and more of a step-by-step thing, and that worked for me. YouTube is so fascinating because there really is no one way. I can't think of, if someone said to me, I'm starting a YouTube channel, got this camera, got this microphone, here's my backdrop, I'm thinking of talking about this, do you think it will work? You know, my honest answer is, it absolutely can, but I've seen people with a lot less do way more. I just don't know. I think maybe that's where consistency and chemistry comes out massively, because it's either chemistry between people, or it's the chemistry you have with your audience, or I don't know if that makes any sense. That sounded a bit cringe, chemistry with your audience, but you know what I mean.
Charisma.
Charisma is a better word.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Relatability, I think, is big. I think that's a big thing that is why football and sports media took off so much, and why football in particular does really well on social media, where other sports maybe don't. With football, you support a team and you feel really like a part of that community, and so you want to go and hear other people in that community's feelings on it, and you want to be able to give your feelings on it via the comments or via call-ins, whatever it might be. Other sports can be more individualistic. So I think football really leans into that community thing a lot, and relatability. So people go, I'm so annoyed Arsenal just lost this game, or I'm so happy Arsenal just won this game, and I need to share this feeling with someone. So I think that's where on YouTube football's really taken off, and why it's really taken off.
Why do you think fan channels are growing as much as they are, especially compared to like mainstream TV? And also if you've seen like the impact that fan channels have had on mainstream TV in general.
I think YouTube's a bit of a cheat code, you know. Like when you stop and think about it, YouTube is this worldwide platform that, bar certain restrictions, and from my understanding there's very few, but I might be wrong, you can essentially watch anything that's uploaded from any creator wherever you are in the world. And it's basically, we're talking about Arsenal, and we can broadcast that to the whole wide world. That is such a game changer, I think. So it started with just fans giving their opinions and people would tune in and enjoy it. And then these creators started building studios and having Blackmagic cameras and, you know, building proper sets. And they started matching the broadcasters for setups and for audience size and for regularity of uploads. And they started, I think, hitting the formula better. They started going, no, well, TV channels are running all day, every day, and they're having to just fill slots in. But we're going to upload when we think is necessary, when we think it suits our audience, it's more tailored to them. And then people going, well, I'll subscribe to this, and I'll subscribe to that, but I won't subscribe to this. Then I'll click on this video. Next thing, the homepage. I watched one Lord of the Rings movie the other day, and I looked something up because I was watching it for the first... Well, I've seen it before. I love them. My girlfriend was watching it for the first time. And I Googled something. Now my whole homepage is feeding me Lord of the Rings, like, essays and details and did you know and blah, blah. And I'm watching it all. I'm going, oh, that's interesting. Purely because of one Google search or one YouTube search. So it's a complete cheat code. It's so tailored to the creator and the viewer, especially the viewer, that I think the mainstream in terms of maybe TV channels and broadcasts or whatever are like, oh my word, this is a juggernaut.
If you had to think of some of the traits that some of the most successful football creators, share, what would those be?
So trust in terms of always being there, which feeds into consistency, is huge. So like Rory Jennings, yeah, Robbie, Mark Goldbridge, they are there all the time. By the way, they're not the only ones. There's many others, but there's just three that come off the top of my head. Every single time they're there. If I'm to talk about myself, the Loose Cannons podcast, after every single game, we're there. So I think that is a big part. I think charisma is something they will share. I find all these people really interesting to listen to. I'll also confess, working in this space, I don't watch a lot of football content. I don't. I switch off. My YouTube algorithm. I think if I refresh my YouTube algorithm now, you'll get Lord of the Rings, Pokemon gaming, Stranger Things reviews. You can tell I'm a bit of a nerd. But it's just like, cooking classes, recipes, places to visit in Australia, just things that I've been looking up because I'm just like trying to just move away from watching football content all the time. But when I do watch people, I have a bit of a giggle. When I watch the Big Six, like I genuinely laugh. And when I watch like Flex and KG on the United View, they are so funny to me. Cecil is such a born entertainer. Who Expressions is on camera and off camera one of the funniest people and most intelligent people I've ever met. Like how he delivers that level of humor, that level of consistent themes running through his personality, but also through his content. How he does that, and he's so witty, he does it on the spot, I'll never know. Matisse is so clever. Like the things he comes up with and the content he does, I don't know how he comes up with, I'm going to break into Turkish's house at 3 a.m. and record a preview from his set because I'm going to war with Arsenal. I just don't know how some people are just extremely charismatic and extremely clever. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think they all share that trait of hard work and charisma, for sure. And maybe some people's charisma is more dumbed down, but that will be more relatable to other people too. So you have a personality that feels authentic and that people can relate to, then you're onto something at least.
That makes sense. And what would you say is the biggest misconception people have about what you do?
Wow, what a question. Oh, I'll tell you one that bothered me. This bothered me when I was at AFTV, and it bothers me to this day. And I hear it a lot less. But this idea that you do better when Arsenal lose, that always bothered me a lot. I'm not going to lie, there is absolutely an element of there are more rival fans than there are Arsenal fans. So if you do badly, the rival fans are a bigger pool, therefore might want to tune in. But it's very simply like, I found when I was at AFTV and on my channel too, that content did best when there was a story. Basically, like any news outlet in the world, if there's a story, that's when things had more eyes on them. If there's a story, then people are compelled to sort of tune into it. So I think that's a misconception, that basically there's like a benefit to one or the other. And there's other people that think you benefit from, well, you just benefit from being really positive and you're just ultimately going to always say that things are really good about the club when they're not, because it gets you views. There's, for me, at least anyway, and from my time at FTV, I didn't really see anything of a clear trend that certain results meant certain views. There's a news story, people are talking about it, people are going to tune in.
Yeah, and I think it does make sense because the biggest criticism you see, at least I've seen of AFTV in particular, I'm sure football content as a whole, is you do better when the team's losing and you benefit from all this rage and all that.
Well, and again, it's not to say that there isn't a molecule of truth in that. It's just so much more nuanced and there's so many more layers to it. And so many shows I did with Graham, for example, it's pure data. It's just research and analysis. There's nothing, it's not shouty, it's not too calm, it's not too conversational. It's a lot of numbers and analysis. And people enjoyed that, whether we won or lost. So Alex at the Different Knock, right, who he had on, he's done videos where he's had to say, look, things aren't right at Arsenal and this is how we fix it. And from mine, I was like, they've done great. Yeah. But he's also seen as a very positive Arsenal fan who does great when he makes videos about Kai Havertz being brilliant. So I think people get too fixated on that you want a particular type of result or that you want a particular type of outcome for a football club. Do you know what we all want as creators? I want to win the league. I want us to win lots of football matches because then we have more football matches, so we've got more videos to talk about. I want us to sign lots of players because there's more breakdowns, there's more news to cover. From a creator perspective, that is the golden ticket. That would be great. But from an Arsenal fan perspective, I just want to watch my team. I want them to win, and then everything comes after that.
I'm just trying to go to a title parade in May.
Literally, just get me to that title parade. And you know, the fun, the euphoria that will be around, not just North London, but London. You're going to see so many Arsenal shirts out, and you're going to see content popping off for everyone because they are just going to be in the thrill and the euphoria of that kind of moment. Arsenal Football Club deserve, I really believe we deserve a title. I don't know what I'm basing that on, I just feel we do.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So, again, the other day when we were speaking, you described your job at AFTV at the time as a dream job, and the job you're doing now as a dream job as well. So you're someone who's built a career out of dream jobs. What do you think it was that led you to be able to have that, or like any kind of angle you could speak to or advice you could give around having been able to create these opportunities for yourself to have these jobs?
Yeah, I think fundamentally I've just been so lucky that I get to talk about Arsenal for a living and football. I think the things they put in place, like some of it was, whilst totally acknowledging how lucky I was to get the opportunity at AFTV, that people tune in, that I talk about Arsenal for a living, there was hard work put in place. I decided to do a sports journalism master's and study for an extra year. I talked about the Goonerverse website. I created another website before that where I was practicing writing about football. I took another job before AFTV in the pandemic when I was writing about football as well. I just put myself in positions to try things. I just put myself in positions to just write and practice and hone my craft, for want of a better phrase. So, yeah, I was lucky. And even when I was in the four walls of AFTV, I was, like I said, I was learning and seeing what others were doing and trying to take inspiration and learn from all that. So, I think I did do a lot of work. Like when I did my sports journalism masters, I would, do my Monday to Friday. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, I'd be writing articles for other, publications and people and websites, for example, for free. I would do it for free because you got the thrill of your byline being there. Man, I'm published on this website. And I did work experience. I did it at the Mirror, I think, and a few other places. Again, all free work, writing articles, just trying to, practice. But, I think because I'm so passionate about it, I don't reflect on any of those pieces of work or any of those weekends or any of those, times in in work experience. I never reflect on any of it as oh, that was really hard graft. That was difficult. The things I reflect on as hard graft was working my pub shifts after doing my sort of 6-7 hours at uni, was then working the pub shifts after. But even then, I was very lucky. I worked with, like I said, I've been very lucky to have worked in great teams largely. The bosses were great. I worked with great teams and I was motivated to go there and earn my money and then go to uni and practice doing the thing I wanted to do long term. So whenever anyone works for me and they say, no, look, I'll happily do this for free, I just want to try, I'm always really adamant, no, I'll pay you something for it. But at the same time, don't hesitate. If it really is your passion, you really enjoy doing it, don't hesitate to take on some opportunities that might not be paid. That doesn't mean devalue yourself. That doesn't mean, absolutely break your back for someone for nothing. But put yourself out there, practice things. Yeah, just keep trying things. Seriously, just keep trying things and put it out there and have a go, and you'll learn from each one.
If you had to boil it down to one thing, what would you say is the cheat code to succeed at football YouTube?
I think consistency. But it's not enough on its own. So people out there are thinking, great, well, I'll just upload every day. There's got to be more to it. But I think if you're consistent, I think I'm yet to see an idea on YouTube not work in some capacity. Or actually, I'll say another way. I've seen so many ideas that I've thought, how did this work? How is this like so viewed and got so big? But if you're consistent and your audience know what to expect to a degree, what to expect or when to expect it, then I think that is a big cheat code. But it's so much more complex than that. And I don't just like work on YouTube in terms of uploading to it. I really try study it. I really try learn from other channels and everything. And I really can't say that there's many trends I've found. There are some, absolutely some, and I've incorporated that into my channel. A big one. I remember being sort of made aware of the whole title thumbnail package. A lot of people like to put their title on the thumbnail.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, they come together. So there's no need to do that. So your thumbnail should say something that complements the title. So there's little trends like that. But other things, I think, is consistency more than anything.
Yeah, and I think you're a testament to that, man. It's like not just consistency of reps for the sake of reps, but intentionally, applying these kinds of things that you mentioned, giving it your all, like showing up with the right energy,
Big one.
Yeah, being able to, again, be able to deliver to the viewer what they expect to get. And at least, in my experience, every time I saw you way back when on AFTV, even nowadays, I know that if I click on a James V video, a Goonerverse video, it's going to be a consistent level of quality with insights and
Thanks, man.
analysis that's worth watching.
I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, when I went to AFTV, I wanted to very specifically be analysis driven and data driven. And then I actually weirdly found that some people still say to me, like, oh, you do the stats. And I'm like, that's so interesting. Because I don't think that's been my main piece of content for a long time. But fine. Whatever. I think I'm more news now. I think I'm more on the pulse. This is happening. I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm going to break down exactly what you need to know in 10 minutes. I think that's been my USP for a little while. Or especially what I focused on the most. But yeah, I hear it. I still like to do the analysis thing. And when I went to AFTV, I definitely had that in mind as, well, I think I can bring this. But ultimately, again, over time, you're just shaped by different contents you try, different comments, different feedback, different view counts. Sometimes you go, well, people really like this and I enjoy making this, so why don't I do more of that? So yeah, it could be a lot of things.
A couple of finishers that I always like to ask. If you could speak to a past version of yourself that was going through a tough time, regardless of what that was, could have come up, could have not, what advice would you have to give them?
I think I would say, I really, really, really don't want to sound arrogant when I say this, or big myself up too much or anything. I think I would say to myself last year when I was going through a tough time, and for various reasons, I think I'd say, James, you're better at this than you think, and you've got a bigger reach than you think, and more people know about your content than you think. So just embrace it. Like, just carry on. You'll be fine. Very hard to know that in the moment. But I didn't think I'd be on TalkSport and the club and collaborating with some people I have been. I didn't think that was coming for me this time a year ago. So I think I'd probably say that.
It's funny because, I've asked that question to a few people and it'll all work out. It'll all be fine. Carry on, keep going. It's something that keeps coming up. And like, again, a reflection I had just while I realized that you were going to go down that thought was like, it really is, again, just about that. And we mentioned before in terms of you leaving AFTV and kind of having the conviction to kind of go and start your own thing. I mean, I was going to ask this during the episode, but I named the podcast Delusion by Design. Delusion, in the sense of, speaking it into existence, seeing it before it exists. What does that concept mean to you?
Yeah, it's funny because I was actually telling my girlfriend that was coming on this podcast, and I said it's a clever name, and it got me thinking about it, because essentially what you're saying is it's all kind of like we're all kind of looking beyond maybe. There's like an internal belief that I haven't seen that I can be on this platform, on that platform, I can hit these numbers and I can have this reach, because I haven't done it yet. So there's a degree of delusion because there's no evidence of it yet. But it's also by design that I'm putting myself in a position to be able to go and reach those things. So I think that might be the idea. Your message about, and what you're saying, that I'm not the first to come with the whole, don't worry, it'll kind of all work out. I mean, I want to be careful with this actually, because that's what I would say to myself knowing today.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know then what the next year holds. And people who are sat in this chair chatting to you about this will have a degree of, that there's a success to what they've done, and they're seeing good results in what they're doing. Therefore, it's kind of easy to spread that message of, and I don't disagree with it, keep going and all that. I fundamentally believe in that too. But I also think it's like, there will be some rough moments, whatever that might be, like just in your career in general, or in life, like just things get thrown at you. Just take time to yourself, but keep working hard. There's so many times where I go, I don't want to work hard today because I'm in a bad mood about this. And then you go, but the two aren't linked. It is you link the two, but what's happening here shouldn't really be affecting this. So I'd always say, as best as possible, take time to yourself. Just like, keep calm, carry on, just put the brakes on, love yourself for a second, and then go back into that in a clearer mind. Easier said than done. But just like, I don't know, just keep plugging away if you really believe in something. And don't be afraid to take time to yourself if you need to. Because I think the reason I came back so motivated this season was because for about 6-7 months, maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe 4 or 5 months. For about 4 or 5 months of 2025, I wasn't uploading that regularly. I wasn't doing a lot of content. I wasn't that passionate about so much of what I was doing. But I took time away because Arsenal weren't doing great. There wasn't too much to talk about. The season was fizzling out, and I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to go to Australia and I'm going to try have a really good summer and do the things I want to do and take some time for myself. And when I came back, August 17th, Man United Arsenal, I was like back and passionate again, and I was kind of in it, and I needed that time away to be able to come back with that fresh perspective on it. So then the work rate comes back and all that.
Any final message, anecdote, story you want to leave the viewer with?
Okay, no, I don't have a story, but I think I touched on it earlier in the podcast where I said the Goonerverse I came up with in 2019. I just think 2018, maybe 2019. And it was only in 2024 that it actually became something that was more widely known in terms of my subscribers seeing the name, viewers seeing the name, Turkish promoting on our podcast and things like that. I suppose I find that always quite funny to tell people. Maybe only I find it funny, but I find it quite funny to tell people because it wasn't I'm going to do this. I sat down, I came up with the name, and here it is. It was an idea I had before. I pivoted from that. Well, I parked it, and then when I picked it up again, I pivoted from what it was to fit what I learned and what I was doing now. So don't be afraid to see your ideas not actually developing in the way you think, if actually what you're looking at looks really positive. Like, just embrace that. This isn't how I thought it was going to be. I never thought the Goonerverse was going to be used in this way, in terms of a name and an IP or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that it has worked out this way. So, and that was never the plan. Never, ever the plan or the intention. But it was an idea from 6 years ago, and I just picked it up and ran with it. 7 years ago now. So, yeah, there you go. Embrace change. And I'm terrible at that. I'm really bad at that. But yeah, embrace change if it doesn't feel like anything to regret.
Adaptability, right?
Yeah. Important in like the football space, I think, because things are changing all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. No, I think that's sound advice, not just for the space you're in, what you do, but life in general, being able to adapt. And, you can make plans. Things will never go exactly according to plan.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to pivot. You're going to need to make things work. And no, I think, again, your story is a testament to that. And, I had brought a thing to share, and we touched on it quite a bit. But for me, what always caught my eye with you throughout your time at AFTV, and especially now with the Goonerverse, is just like the sheer volume and speed at which you manage to get stuff out. And late after a game, you're not feeling great, whatever it is, rain or dry,
Yeah.
you're there and you always give it your all as well. And yeah, I have a lot of respect for that, and I'm sure
Thank you.
even bigger and better things will come for you if you keep applying yourself in that way to keep growing as you are.
I hope so. Thank you, man. I'm very lucky to do what I do. Yeah, I have worked hard to put myself in this position. I really have. Before AFTV, during and after, I've worked really hard. But I've also been lucky along the way. And yeah, let's see how this kind of football media landscape changes, because I think it is constantly evolving, and I don't think it's going to look in 2 years how it looks today. And I don't know what I mean. I actually don't know what I mean by that. That sounds quite profound, and like I've got some really deep thoughts on that. I don't. I just have this feeling that it will look quite different. So that keeps you on your toes as well. But thank you for the kind words. Thanks for having me as well. I really appreciate it. I'm not actually the best at like reflecting on those sort of things. So yeah, that was testing in a good way. So thanks.
No, a huge pleasure, bro. I think you brought a lot of value. And yeah, I look forward to being able to run this up in a couple years' time.
Absolutely.
Whenever that is, to get some.
When the Goonerverse 3 is out.
Exactly. Goonerverse 3 and some deeper reflections on AFTV.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that being said, if you made it to the end, appreciate you sticking by. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps me bring on dope guests like James and really grow the reach. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, you can check out this one that I did with Alex from The Different Knock, going through his story, his worldview, and how he got to where he is today, making video essays about Arsenal.